It started on an unusually quiet Thursday morning in the small town of Millfield, where not much ever happened, except maybe a flat tire on Main Street or the occasional teenager sneaking out after curfew. Officer Daniel Reyes was wrapping up his night shift, sipping the last of his lukewarm coffee, watching the fog roll lazily over the empty streets when he first saw the cat. At first, he didn't think much of it. Strays were common in Millfield, and they usually scattered at the first sign of a human. But this one didn't run. It stood right in the middle of the road, tail high, ears alert, staring directly at his cruiser with eyes that seemed almost too aware. Curious, Officer Reyes slowed the vehicle. The cat didn't flinch. Instead, it took a few slow steps toward the car, then stopped. When Reyes rolled his window down, it meowed, a long, loud, almost desperate sound. Then it turned and walked away, and paused, turned back, meowed again, almost like it was asking him to follow. Reyes hesitated. He glanced at the clock, 6:03 a.m. Shift change was at 7. He had time. He opened the door, stepped out, and the cat immediately began walking again. Slow and deliberate, pausing just long enough to make sure he was still following. "All right, little buddy," Reyes muttered, locking his cruiser and starting after the feline. "Show me what's so urgent." The cat led him through alleyways and narrow gaps between buildings, winding behind the bakery and the post office, then darted under a broken chain-link fence at the edge of town, toward the old Fairchild property. That place had been abandoned for years after the last owner, an elderly recluse named Martha Fairchild, passed away. No one wanted the land. It was overgrown, filled with rusted cars and half-fallen sheds. Kids said it was haunted. Adults called it cursed. Reyes didn't believe in either. But the cat believed in something, and it was moving with purpose now, tail flicking, glancing back every few steps to make sure he was still there. By the time they reached the edge of the property, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting eerie gold light over the unkempt weeds and shattered windows of the old farmhouse. The cat stopped at the foot of the porch and sat down, staring at the door. Reyes approached cautiously, one hand on his belt, the other reaching for the flashlight, even though the dawn was breaking. The air felt thick here, heavier, like something was sitting on his chest. "You brought me here for a reason," he said softly, crouching next to the cat. It meowed once more, and then looked directly at the door again. Something scratched inside, a faint, rhythmic sound. Reyes stood, heart suddenly racing. He reached for the handle, unlocked. The door creaked open. The smell hit him first. Dampness, rot, and something metallic, blood. His hand instinctively went to his holster as he stepped into the dark house. The cat followed him inside, slipping past his feet and moving ahead with astonishing confidence. The floorboards groaned underfoot. Dust danced in the air. And then he heard it. A faint whimper. Human. Reyes froze. He followed the sound, each step heavier than the last, until he reached what used to be the dining room. The cat stopped at the doorway, crouched low. Reyes peered inside, and his breath caught in his throat. In the middle of the room, tied to an old radiator with duct tape and rope, was a girl. Barely 8 years old. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face bruised, her mouth gagged. She flinched at the light. Reyes didn't think. He moved quickly, reassuring her in a low voice as he cut the restraints, pulled off the gag, and lifted her into his arms. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I've got you. You're safe." But the girl, she didn't seem relieved. She clutched his shirt and shook her head frantically, pointing to the back of the house. "There's more," she rasped, barely audible. "He's still here." Reyes radioed for backup immediately, his voice tight. "This is Officer Reyes. I have a child, possible abduction victim, requesting urgent backup at the Fairchild property. Suspect may still be on site." He took the girl out to his cruiser, locked her safely inside, then turned back toward the house. The cat was still at the door, staring at him, unmoving. As he stepped inside again, it meowed, low and long, a warning. This time, Reyes drew his weapon. The house was deathly silent now, the creaks louder in the absence of any other sound. He moved toward the back, following the hallway past broken picture frames and old newspapers scattered on the floor. There was another door, locked. He kicked it in. A basement. The stairs descended into complete darkness. And that smell. Stronger now. The metallic tang of blood, mixed with something acrid and burning. He called out, "Police! Come out with your hands up!" No response. He stepped down. The basement looked like something out of a nightmare. Flickering light bulbs barely lit the room, but what Reyes saw would haunt him for years. There were cages with bars bent outward, as if someone or something had tried to escape. Chains attached to the walls, a table with surgical tools laid out neatly beside a stained mattress. And worst of all, photographs, dozens of them, kids, cats, dogs, faces twisted in fear or pain, pinned to the wall with thumbtacks like trophies. Reyes's stomach turned. This was more than an abduction. This was something far worse, something monstrous. Then he heard it, a soft, dragging noise. From the far corner of the basement, behind a curtain, something moved. Reyes raised his weapon, flashlight beam shaking slightly. "Show yourself," he barked. Silence. Then, laughter. A slow, raspy chuckle. The curtain moved. Out stepped a man, or what used to be a man, gaunt, pale, eyes sunken so deep it was hard to see if he even had any. His clothes were stained, his fingers twitching. "She wasn't supposed to escape," he croaked. "But the cat! That damn cat! Always watching!" He lunged. Reyes fired. Once. Twice. The man dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Backup arrived minutes later, sirens piercing the early morning air. The girl was taken to the hospital. Her name was Lily. She had been missing for 6 days. She had survived because she believed the cat would help her. The cat, whom she had secretly fed scraps to near her apartment for months, had followed her when she was taken, had found her, had sought help, and somehow had known exactly where to go. Animal control arrived later, but the cat couldn't be caught. It vanished before anyone could grab it. No microchip, no collar, just a small scar under its left eye, and eyes far too knowing for any normal feline. The townspeople began calling it Guardian. Kids left food for it on their porches. Adults looked over their shoulders when they walked alone, wondering if the Guardian was watching. And in the police station, Officer Reyes kept a single photo pinned above his desk, a blurry shot from a street cam, showing the cat sitting in front of his cruiser, looking directly at the lens. But there was one thing that haunted Reyes more than anything else. One detail Lily whispered days later in the hospital, her voice still weak. He was trying to train others. He said he had more kids coming, more plans, but he didn't work alone. Reyes didn't sleep for days after that. The basement had been cleaned out, documented, sealed. But sometimes, late at night, when he drove past the Fairchild property, he swore he saw a shadow in the weeds, a flash of yellow eyes. And once, just once, he found a paw print on his cruiser, fresh, in the middle of the hood, miles from where the cat had last been seen. Now the question still lingers, one no one can answer. If the cat knew exactly where to find the police that morning, What else does it know? And what horrors has it seen that haven't yet come to light? 3 weeks had passed since that morning, the morning that changed everything for Officer Daniel Reyes and the quiet town of Millfield. The sun still rose over Main Street, the bakery still opened at 7 a.m. sharp, teenagers still whispered ghost stories behind the bleachers. But underneath it all, something had shifted. A tremor in the town's pulse, a fear that clung to the corners of everyday life. And for Reyes, that fear had a name: the Guardian. No one had seen the cat since that day. Not really. There were whispers, sure, sightings in alleyways, paw prints on dusty windowsills, flickers of movement on grainy security cams. But never long enough to confirm. Never long enough to catch. Reyes had reviewed the footage of that early morning over and over again. The street cam image of the cat staring into his cruiser. The odd pause in its steps. The way it turned back to him, like it knew. And Lily's words echoed in his mind like a warning carved into stone. He didn't work alone. Reyes couldn't shake it. He began combing through missing persons reports across the region, especially cases involving children. He found too many, too similar. Small towns, isolated locations, little police attention. Always a stretch of days between the abduction and discovery. Sometimes the children were found alive. Most times, they weren't. Then came the break. A call from a county officer in Briar Hollow, 40 miles north. A janitor had found a hidden compartment beneath a condemned house, sealed with bricks and rotting boards. Inside, bones, tiny ones, and a symbol, crudely etched into the stone wall, a spiral with a cross through it. Reyes's blood ran cold when he saw the photo, because in the background, barely visible in the shadows near a shattered window, was a blur. Faint, but unmistakable. 2 glowing eyes. The same street cam had captured a similar blur in Millfield. Reyes enlarged both images. The eyes matched. He didn't tell anyone, not yet. Not until he had more. That night, Reyes drove to the Fairchild property again. The house was sealed, condemned officially now, the basement padlocked and boarded. But the weeds still grew thick, and the air still held that same unnatural weight, like the land itself was holding its breath. Reyes parked his cruiser, flashlight in hand, and began to walk the perimeter. He didn't expect to find anything. He just couldn't sit idle anymore. He didn't hear the cat, but he felt it. A chill crawled up his spine, and when he turned, there it was, sitting atop the porch rail like a sentry, tail curled around its feet, eyes burning gold in the fading twilight, the scar under its eye more pronounced in the dim light. Reyes stopped. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the cat stood and walked toward the edge of the property, and stopped. It waited. He followed. They crossed through a thicket of trees Reyes didn't remember being so thick before, until they reached an old storm drain at the edge of the property, hidden behind brush and bramble, a metal grate rusted and broken. The cat slipped through the gap. Reyes hesitated, then ducked and followed. The drain was wide enough to crouch, barely, cold and wet. The air reeked of mildew and decay. The cat's paws were nearly silent as it led him deeper into the underground maze, turning sharply down, intersecting tunnels until Reyes had completely lost track of direction. He marked the walls with chalk as he went, trying to stay grounded. Then he heard it, whispering, faint, echoing off the tunnel walls. At first he thought it was just water, trickling through cracks, but the further he went, the more defined the words became. Childlike, reciting something, a chant. He turned the last corner and froze. There was a chamber at the end of the tunnel, carved out, lit by the dim orange glow of candles in glass jars. On the walls were more symbols, spirals, crosses, symbols he didn't recognize. And in the center, 3 children, 2 girls, 1 boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, sitting cross-legged in a triangle, eyes closed, chanting softly in unison. Reyes stepped forward, voice tight. Hey, are you all right?" They didn't react, didn't even seem to hear him. The cat sat at the edge of the circle, staring into the candlelight, unmoving. Then Reyes saw the man, tall, hidden in shadow just behind the children, face obscured by a hood. He raised a hand slowly, commanding silence. The kids stopped chanting, as if snapped from a trance. The man spoke, calm, software. "They don't belong to you, officer. Not anymore. Their minds are ready. Their souls promised." Reyes drew his weapon. "Get away from them. Now." The man didn't flinch. "You think this ends with me?" he asked. "We are many. We are buried beneath your feet. We are in the empty houses, the cracks in your streets, the silence between sirens. You've seen only one nest. There are more, dozens, hundreds." The girl was not the only offering, just the first that escaped. He turned. Reyes fired, but the man vanished, disappeared into smoke, like his body dissolved into the candlelight. The children collapsed. The candles flickered out, and the cat let out a single, mournful meow, before walking to the nearest child and pressing its head gently to the boy's hand. Reyes radioed for backup again, his voice shaking. 3 kids found alive. Underground chamber beneath Fairchild property. Unknown symbols. Possible cult activity. I need extraction. Now. It took hours to find their way back out. The children had no memory of how they got there. One of them, a girl named Zoe, recognized Lily's picture from the hospital. "She was with us," she said. "But then she was gone." The man said the cat took her too soon. When Reyes stepped back into the light, he felt like he'd crossed into a different world. The morning sun didn't feel warm anymore, just distant. The cat vanished again, but that night, Reyes found a new symbol burned into his windshield. A spiral, crossed through the middle. He knew what it meant. This wasn't over. It had only just begun.